Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /PettyRevenge, where people get little wins on others and the stories are so satisfying. And in today's episode, the theme is weddings, guys, and Karens are getting destroyed. One OP teaches a thieving roommate a lesson she won't forget. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So before we begin, I just want to say that the rental situation in my city is horrific. So at the time, I decided to save a little money by moving into a 2-bedroom apartment with a friend of a friend. The situation begins to go south barely a month into our 1-year lease, with the new roommates, who we'll call Karen, starting out by just being a little nuts, and then progressing into stealing my things like clothes, money, cosmetics, and even underwear. And I don't mean borrow without asking, I mean disappear into her clutches, never to be seen again. Instead of taking the penalty for breaking my lease, I decide to wait out the rest of the year. I buy a lock for my bedroom door, and I move most of my things into my bedroom, except for the sofa, TV, Blu-ray, etc., which stay in the living room. So here's the story. In the final days of our lease, we each begin to move out, and when I come home from work, I find Karen's things gone, along with my TV, my Blu-ray player, and everything else she had access to. Now, none of this was brand new stuff. Most of it was my parents' cast-offs or secondhand purchases, but there was no way I could afford to replace them. Also, I had no way to prove that these items were mine, as they were secondhand. I knew it would be her word against mine, and when I called her demanding my things back, this is exactly how it played out. So that said, here's the revenge. This could have been the end of just another bad roommate story, but Karen had left one last precious thing to move out, her wedding dress. The dress was tucked away in the back of a closet in a clothes bag, so I'm assuming that she, or someone who helped her move, forgot it, or they thought it was mine. Well, the thing is, Karen was getting married in 2 months. It was too good an opportunity to pass up, and the dress went with me. It didn't take too long to get the first phone call. Over the next few days, I ignored at least 30 phone calls from her. I was prepared to just trade for my things back. But then, I got a letter from a lawyer demanding the return of the dress. I really didn't want to blow the issue up any further, so I got out her beautiful, delicate designer lace dress and I prepared to return it. I rolled up the dress and folded it, and I stuffed it into the smallest box possible, a little bigger than a shoebox. I could hear the fabric ripping as I crammed it in, but that's not it. I just so happened to have a friend that was headed to Europe, and was very happy to put the dress in her suitcase. When she arrived, I had my friend send the dress cash on delivery. I can only imagine the look on Karen's face as she finally got her dress days before her wedding, and then not only had to pay for delivery, but also needed to get it cleaned, pressed, and possibly repaired for her big day. I only wish I was there to see her face. Now that was a great revenge. Karen did say she wanted the dress back. She didn't say how or what condition she wanted it back in. And guys, a lot of people are saying that OP should have cut the dress up and then boxed it, or not even have sent it to Karen. But in my opinion, letting Karen think that she'd be getting her beautiful gown back, only to find out mere days before the wedding that the dress is ruined, it's absolutely perfect what OP did, in my opinion. As always, let me know your thoughts on this post. So when my brother got married, his bride, now my sister-in-law, had very specific expectations. She wanted everyone in the family to wear their wedding colors, and we all did. Everyone made an effort to make her feel celebrated. The day before the wedding, she made some offhanded but clearly pointed remarks how our side of the family never takes anything seriously, and she wasn't expecting us to take this seriously either. The comments made their rounds and feelings were hurt before the wedding even began, but we still showed up, we looked great, and participated. Fast forward to getting the wedding photos and video. Not a single photo of our side of the family was posted, not one. In the entire 3-minute highlight reel, no faces from our family except a 3-second clip of my parents with the bride and groom. The rest of us, it's like we never existed. So I texted her cordially and I asked if she could send me the pictures with just our siblings, since none had been posted. She then responded that we never even took those pictures. And that's wild because I remember helping people adjust corsages for them. She then doubled down on the gaslighting. I gave it 6 months and then asked again, and she suddenly had no idea what I was talking about. So I thought to myself, fine. And here's where the petty revenge comes in. I'm getting married in 8 days. I've been engaged for 6 months and been planning this moment since she tried to erase us. I hire a great photographer and videographer. What she doesn't know is the videographer has a secret mission to make it look like she's getting all the attention on my wedding day. He would track her and hover near her like she's the star of the show. She'll feel so seen. And then the final cut, she won't appear for even 1 second. Just like she made sure we didn't. And here's the thing, I didn't even invite her originally. Word must have gotten out because she corners me at a family dinner and she said, "Unfortunately, I have to work the day before and after your wedding, but I should still be able to make it." I was just so stunned that I said, "That's fine. The Airbnb's booked whether you're there or not." And to cope, I spelled her name wrong on the wedding invite on purpose. That was my first move. The video blackout will be my last. I'm not asking for advice. I'm not asking if it's too mean, because it's not. It's exactly fair. What a brilliant petty revenge that was, and I literally thought OP was gonna go the other petty route where they would get the photographer to take unglamorous photos of her. You know the ones, eyes closed, weird facial expressions, all that stuff, but in my opinion, this is so much better. With that said though, I know sister-in-law was the a-hole in the situation for not posting any pictures of OP's family, but I feel the brother plays a part in it too. I mean, it's his wedding as well, and where was the brother in all of this is my question. And guys, if you enjoyed that post, this next one, OP gets back at their nasty brother-in-law in a huge way. So this actually happened about 4 years ago. At the time, I was married to my now ex-wife. Her sister Alice was getting married to this guy named Roger. But let's backtrack a bit so I can set the scene, as it is a bit long, but bear with me, friends. I'd had a rough past with Roger, and we didn't care for each other in the least, to put it mildly. The guy's a compulsive liar, a mooch, and a cheat, and he had pretty much alienated Alice from most of her friends and family. He and I had a falling out over this where I called him out on his BS. In revenge, he said a lot of really horrible lies about me to my family, and he had done his best to try to get me fired from my job as well, along with some other things I can't discuss. Really, really evil crap, like the guy's a dirtbag. As a result, we had to pay a lawyer to send him a cease and desist letter, and we went no contact with either of them. I wouldn't even be in the same building with him for any reason, including birthdays, Christmases, etc. After a few years, I was still no contact with either of them, but I came under a lot of pressure from my in-laws to normalize things somewhat. You know, for the good of the family. Now, I got along great with my in-laws, and it was really important to them, so I gave it a shot. I would basically be at an event with them, but wouldn't socialize or engage with either of them. A few months later, they announced their engagement, and they began planning the wedding. My wife was to be maid of honor, and our kids, 6 and 4, would be flower girl and ring bearer. Now, I was absolutely not in the wedding party, and this you must understand, and I was perfectly okay with that. As the planning continues, I get word that Roger would like to buy me a suit. This was his way of making amends, so I wouldn't have to pack a suit of my own. Now, I had plenty of suits, so this was really an odd request. But the guy comes from money, and he said it was his way of trying to make amends for all the BS in the past. So I thought, whatever, fine, I'll go along. So I sent my measurements over, along with my son's, for the wedding planner. The wedding was also in a different state, so I wouldn't be able to see the suit until we picked it up a day before the wedding. This concerned me, along with his insistence that I wouldn't have to bring a suit, so I packed my own suit as well. It was a nice charcoal gray 2-piece, with a white shirt and blue tie. We fly into the state, check into our hotel, and I head to the haberdasher to pick up the suits, along with my son and father-in-law. It turns out Roger hadn't bought us suits, but he had actually rented us some cream-colored tuxedos as his side of the wedding party. The guy was basically trying to dress us up like the groomsmen, despite not being in the wedding. I immediately saw why he didn't want me to pack a suit, and I had a good laugh at it, but I said nothing, and I let him think he got over on me. My wife also found this quite hilarious, and there we formulate our plan. The day of the wedding, everyone gets dolled up in their wedding kits, champagne dresses, and cream-colored tuxedos, and me in my charcoal gray suit. When Roger saw me, he was cordial, but he did look a bit irked. I found out through the grapevine that he was absolutely livid I didn't wear the tux, which did make my day. Now for the absolute best part, cue the petty revenge. The pictures. Because I was close family, I was included in a lot of pictures by default. But my wife, bless her heart, made a point of pulling me into almost every picture she was able to. When the pictures came back, it was amazing. In at least 60% of the pictures, I was in there somewhere, and I stood out like a sore thumb. 8 to 10 people, all dressed in the same cream-colored suits, and there was me, in my almost black suit. Alice was so beyond pissed that she had a meltdown, and she insisted that everyone get together after the wedding to retake the pictures the right way, which of course didn't happen, as this was 3 months after the wedding. So yeah, enjoy your wedding album with its almost perfect color scheme and coordination. My goodness, the way OP got back at his brother-in-law was frickin' evil, wasn't it? And honestly, you can't say brother-in-law didn't deserve it for making everyone wear cream-colored tuxedos. Like, imagine a cream-colored tuxedo not being what ruins a wedding photo. But jokes aside, guys, when someone tells you to not worry about something, you should probably worry about it. But listen here, a lot of people are disagreeing with OP did, calling him the bad guy in this situation. Like, a lot of people are saying that brother-in-law tried to make amends, but OP just took it and threw it back in his face. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree or disagree with what OP did? This happened years ago, so I thought I'd share. One of my friends, Mel, was getting married, and she went all out for it. The venue was amazing, the food was great, decor was beautiful, good music, you name it. The day of the wedding, everything was going well until someone dropped to one knee. You already know where this is going. Someone actually proposed at someone else's wedding. I was giving the couple the side eye, but I thought maybe this was planned. Maybe my friend knows, because who would be bold enough to do this without permission? So I went to find my friend Mel. She was sitting at a table surrounded by a few friends, looking a mixture of angry and sad. I asked if she knew this was gonna happen. She just gave a small head shake and she said, well, there's nothing for me to do now, right? So that's when I decided that she doesn't have to do anything. I'll do it for her. I walk up to the happy couple, who at this point was surrounded by a few people congratulating them. The audacity. And to give credit to some people, a lot of the guests were looking awkward, bewildered, and they had the face of not interested to be involved in the drama. So not everyone lost their common sense, it seems. Back to the story. I walk up to her and I asked to see the ring. She was all smiley, holding out her hand, and I made a show of looking at it closely and then loudly said, well, at least the ring is decent. Immediately the smile's gone. She looked shocked and she asked, what's that supposed to mean? Again, I loudly told her, girl, you got proposed to at someone's wedding which he didn't plan or pay for. You're not even worth that much. I'm just glad he didn't cheapen out on the ring. After I said that, I turned around. I went to a nearby friend and still in a voice that I want everyone to hear, I said how tacky and embarrassing they are. And like a switch, everyone starts whispering at them. Some stuff that I heard includes who does that at someone's wedding. And the man can't even plan an event, he had to mooch off someone else. And if I was her, I wouldn't have said yes. The couple left really fast after that. Mel said she felt better at the end, so I don't feel guilty. As I'm not familiar with the couple, I heard this through a friend. Apparently, the day after, The girl non-stop complained how her proposal was ruined and she was traumatized by it. The next rumor I heard was the proposal was supposedly her idea, and the guy just went along with it. Now he's getting called pathetic and cheap. I have no sympathy for someone that stupid. So the moral here, people, is have some class and learn better manners. In my opinion, OP's a solid friend to have around, and what a hero she was. I'm also glad to hear that Mel ended up feeling better once OP called out that couple. Like, the worst thing somebody can do is propose at someone's wedding without permission. And that Karen is seriously lucky that Mel seemed chill and didn't go bridezilla on her. Because you know there's people out there that would have lost it, and Karen would have had to leave on a stretcher. Especially when finding out the proposal was her idea. Oh my goodness. And guys, if you enjoyed that story, listen to this one. So last summer, I was at a cousin's wedding. His bride and her family had been close with ours since before I was born, and the couple had known each other since they were toddlers, so it was a particularly exciting event for both sides of the family. However, after the ceremony was over and the party had only just started, one of the bridesmaids decides to announce her own engagement. The attention was immediately taken away from the newlyweds and brought to the bridesmaid, who I'll call Sarah, and her equally smug fiancé. My cousin's wife, who I'll call Emma, didn't make a scene or utter a single negative word about Sarah. She looked like she was on the verge of tears, but she kept smiling and she acted very happy for the couple. And this was unusual, as Emma is typically quite confrontational and she speaks her mind no matter the consequences. Sarah later picked Emma to be the maid of honor at her own wedding, which took place last weekend, and this is where the fun begins. Emma's two much younger sisters were flower girls at Sarah's wedding. At the very last moment, Emma switched out the white petals in their baskets to blue ones that she had secretly brought with her. She told her sisters not to say anything about it or let the bride see them until it was time to scatter them down the aisle. Sarah looked very confused upon seeing the blue petals, which didn't coordinate whatsoever with her theme. But of course, she didn't say anything in that moment. Most of Sarah's other bridesmaids were also Emma's friends, and they had attended Emma's wedding, and they were in on Emma's scheme. At the reception, Emma's sisters and the other bridesmaids were tight-lipped when Sarah began demanding to know why there were blue petals. The wedding planner ends up getting a lot of abuse for not checking the flower girls' baskets before they walked down the aisle. Finally, it was time for the speeches. The speeches took place in front of a massive screen, displaying a loop of photos with Sarah and her husband, which had been compiled by Emma. Emma took the remote that controlled the presentation screen, and at first, she showed some pre-approved humorous photos of Sarah with Emma and other friends to facilitate a couple lighthearted jokes. And then, at the very end, Emma said to Sarah that she must be wondering why there were blue petals instead of the white ones originally planned. That was when Emma displayed the last slide from her presentation. Emma then announced in front of everyone that she was 5 months pregnant, and that she had just discovered the baby was a boy, hence the blue petals, and the last slide was her ultrasound picture. There were shocked yells and gasps, and Sarah had a fit, but those involved in the scheme cheered so loudly that I sincerely regret watching the Snapchat recordings with headphones. Apparently, Sarah had been very nasty to her bridesmaids before, even driving several of them away and forcing others to pay ridiculous amounts of money for dresses. Emma and my cousin were eventually thrown out of the party, but they were all smiles. Sarah's fuming mother went to confront her outside, and that's when Emma retorts with, "Gentle, gentle, I'm pregnant." I reckon Sarah doesn't speak to the majority of those bridesmaids anymore. You know what? Sometimes you can't wait for karma to come knocking. Sometimes you gotta take care of it yourself. That said though, with friends like that, who needs enemies, right? And I feel like the saying, "two wrongs don't make a right," is very fitting for this post. Nothing but feelings hurt all around. Again, let me know, guys, was what Emma did at Sarah's wedding called for, or was it overkill? Because announcing a pregnancy at a wedding is frickin' savage. When my wife and I got married, my wife wanted us to get married in a church. I do have my opinions about that, but given that she wanted it and it would make her happy, that made me happy, so I gave no pushback on that whatsoever. Let's also forget about the fact that the benevolent, generous, loving church required a $1,000 donation to conduct the ceremony and sign the marriage certificate, but I digress. Come the wedding day, we walk down the aisle, surrounded by friends and family, and the ceremony goes wonderfully. We walk back out and we start talking to some of the guests. We smile, laugh, and just be happy. And then I notice my sister, who was part of my wedding party. She was teary-eyed. I looked closer and I noticed she'd been crying. So I asked her what happened, why she was crying, but she wouldn't budge. I then find out my wife had also been crying before the ceremony. I then come to find out that this deacon, who had been part of the ceremony, had told my wife right before she was to walk down the aisle and get married that she couldn't do so because she did not have a veil. That's right, she was told right before she was to be married that she wasn't allowed to walk down the aisle because of an effing veil. And let's just say I was seeing red. And let's just say I was prepared to burn down the world. And let's just say I became angry. I knew that my sister's tears were something to do with that deacon as well, which made this 100 times worse. But I wasn't about to ruin my wife's wedding day by making a scene, and my friends encouraged me to deal with it later as well, so I temporarily let it go. The rest of the wedding day went phenomenally. Everyone had a blast, and we couldn't have been happier. But when we got back from the honeymoon, I took a trip to that church. I took 2 trips to that church. In fact, I took 3 trips to that church. Each time, I calmly, but with what I expect was the look of demonic anger on my face, went to their front office and complained and argued and fought with literally anyone who was there. I demanded to speak with whoever was in charge. Not the man upstairs, obviously. And I spoke to some head of the church board or some crap like that. I then demanded punishment for that deacon, for a face-to-face apology, for some kind of repercussion or retribution for bringing my wife and sister to tears on my wedding day. I'm a lawyer, so I've gotten very used to arguing and arguing and arguing. As much as I wanted to throttle the man that did this, I forced the civilized lens to take precedence and dealt with it that way. It's been months, and from what I've been told and from my own observations, he's been fired. I was also told that he had a reputation, whatever that meant. But I'm convinced that my poking and prodding and stabbing at the subject finally got that prick fired from his oh-so-self-righteous position. Now, I'm not sure if this counts as a petty revenge, but hey, it still felt good to tell this story. And I'm just glad I was able to get some vengeance. I hope you read it. When I was 13 years old, so 8 years ago, my dad remarried after divorcing my mom 4 years before. Before the divorce, his now wife had been his mistress. My mom is completely better off without him, and ignoring the fact that I wouldn't exist, I don't think she should have married him in the first place. Even if I think my parents weren't a good match, that's no excuse to cheat on your wife. So that said, this woman was effing vile in all sorts of ways. She constantly belittled me, and she made fun of the fact that I needed to take pills for my mental illness, despite being an effing pharmacist. And she was generally awful to me and my siblings. The woman was a decade younger than my dad, and she was reasonably hot. So he didn't give a crap how she treated us. The one time he actually listened to us about her was when they were thinking about having a baby, and my brother said that he'd ask our mom to sue for full custody of us if he did. So anyways, they get married. I was a bridesmaid because that bitch had no real friends. The other 2 bridesmaids were her sister and my sister. My brother was the best man because she didn't like my dad's best friend. It was a wedding, and everything went normally. But at the beginning of reception, before the first dance, we were taking pictures in front of a chocolate fountain, looking like a happy family we never were and we'd never be. I'm on the autism spectrum, and I have trouble maintaining eye contact. This extends to looking at a camera. So when we had to retake a photo because I wasn't looking, she leans down and she whispers something nasty to me. I'm not gonna repeat it, but it involved the R word and I don't like saying it. Anyways, I kind of snapped and I decided that she was gonna pay for this. No one noticed, or at least no one called me out, when I started slowly moving the chocolate fountain towards the edge of the table. When it got to the edge, it makes contact with the back of that pure white wedding dress and it slowly drips down. By the time she notices, the damage has been done. But for all anyone else knows, this was an accident. She had no spare dress and that stain's not coming out. So the first dance, cutting the cake, speeches, everything, this woman has what looks like a crap stain on the back of her dress. It was a small revenge, but it was so worth it. What's supposed to be the happiest day of this stupid woman's life, and she's gonna remember that stain every single time she thinks about it. They never did get the stain out, and no one knew it was me, until now, I guess. So if you ever read this, Susie, you are an absolute C-word, and you deserved that chocolate stain. Okay, listen, if I had a nasty stepmom like that, I can't say I wouldn't do the same, right? Especially after she whispered whatever she did into OP's ear. Like, any person who can put down a little kid deserves that and so much more. Like, it's the very least I would do. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /PettyRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /I don't work here lady, where Karens are causing trouble in stores yet again. And OP tells a story about the time a Karen started slapping him out of nowhere. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.